Hello and welcome to Justice. I'm Judge Jeanne. Tonight, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, Senator Lindsey Graham, and we'll pay tribute to civil rights icon, the late John Lewis. But first, my open. There's never been a more important time to come together as a nation. This is not about being left or right. It's time to recognize the Chinese Communist Party's strategy is to become the world's superpower by putting a stranglehold on America. Tonight, that stranglehold has put America at a tipping point as we remain under attack from the deadly virus that the Chinese Communist Party has allowed to escape China, effectively unleashing and seeding the virus upon America and the world, and then lying about it. Let me be straight with you. The virus imported from Wuhan, China, has already taken over 137,000 American lives, sent over 40 million Americans to the unemployment line, triggered the expenditure of trillions of dollars to avoid complete economic collapse, and tested the American spirit like never before. To win the battle against this deadly virus, we know what's required: masks, social distancing, and cleanliness. Along with those personal responsibilities, the Trump administration continues to move at Operation Warp Speed to get vaccines, therapeutics, testings, personal protective equipment needed for this battle. But as we fight together, we cannot let the negative emotions directly caused by the unleashing of the China virus to tear us apart. Come along with me and see if this makes sense. Example, many are legitimately mad, angry, and depressed because they've been locked down in their homes. Many are anxious because of lost jobs or businesses that they know will ultimately fail. Many are desperate because of the inability to pay rent, mortgage, or credit card debt. Many are even fearful of becoming infected with the virus itself. Many parents working from home, thrown into the job of teaching their own children, are frustrated as the teachers' unions push back on schools reopening. Many churches, religious institutions are off limits while marijuana dispensaries and liquor stores are open as essential businesses. Many are unable to work out because of the refusal to allow gyms to reopen. And many grandparents, isolated as children and grandchildren, are not allowed to visit for fear of infecting them. These are all predictable and understandable reactions and emotions brought on by the China virus that has now teed up Americans to deal with issues that in another time we might have dealt with differently. Like the burning and looting of our cities because of racial unrest, the gunning down of innocent children in war zones like Chicago, Minneapolis, Baltimore, and now New York. Protests devolving literally into a cultural revolution as statues are torn down, businesses are burnt to the ground, religious institutions are vandalized, as anarchists attempt to literally erase our history. Like the rise of mindless mobs that would rather burn our history books than read them. This cancel culture has declared war on free expression and our First Amendment rights. This isn't just a blip in our history, Americans going a bit nuts. This is American self-immolation and self-destruction. It is the achievement of the goal of the Chinese Communist Party. So what now? We cannot fight in a partisan way. A house divided against itself cannot stand. This nation is in the fight of its life with the Chinese Communist Party that, in addition to the virus, has ripped us off for decades. Last week, Attorney General William Barr delivered one of the most powerful speeches of a rising China ever delivered by an American government official.
China's communist government has perfected a wide array of predatory and often unlawful tactics: currency manipulation, tariffs, quotas, state-led strategic investment and acquisition, theft and forced transfer of intellectual property, state subsidies, dumping, cyber attacks, and industrial espionage. About 80% of all federal economic espionage prosecutions allege conduct undertaken for the benefit of the Chinese state. And about 60% of all trade secret theft cases have been connected to China.
We've heard about this for years from President Trump. Free trade in a friendly America that previously allowed a mercantilist and authoritarian China to use banks and financial markets of Hong Kong to suck the jobs and capital and lifeblood out of America to the Chinese mainland. Americans made this sacrifice because we wanted to support Hong Kong's freedom and democracy. However, the passage of a single law, the Chinese Communist Party canceled all freedom and democracy in Hong Kong. It was certainly no accident that the Chinese Communist Party used the distraction of the global pandemic to make its reprehensible move on Hong Kong. Its well-known historical MO, turn your back on them, their military will invade. Take your eye off the ball, and they will steal whatever they can. A.G. Barr had it right when he said China's intent is not to trade with our companies, but simply raid them and steal intellectual property and trade secrets that make this nation so strong and our workforce so prosperous. It's time to recognize that Communist China has had a continuous and relentless attack upon American workers. They have been successful because of the collaboration of American corporate and financial interests that have effectively lobbied on their behalf. And Hollywood has agreed to change characters and alter their movies to please the Chinese Communist Party. American big tech companies have allowed themselves to become pawns of Chinese influence, helping the Chinese Party build the Great Firewall of China, according to Bill Barr, the world's most sophisticated system for internet surveillance and censorship. So, let us never forget, as we experience these turbulent times, that it was the Chinese Communist Party that lied and allowed this virus to spread and is now tearing our very society apart. As hard as they may lobby to be recognized as a peaceful sovereign nation, during the pandemic, they hoarded the masks for themselves and then attempted to exploit the shortage for propaganda purposes and shipped often defective equipment and then required foreign leaders to thank Beijing for the shipments. Let us never forget that this nation, the world's greatest superpower, will be on its knees to this regime if we don't immediately take our medical supply chain from them. China is our largest supplier of medical devices. Why? America also depends on the Chinese supply chain, especially pharmaceuticals. Should China decide to limit or restrict these supplies, we are in trouble. Let us never forget that America, as she fights within herself, must understand that we are now in the fight of our lives with the Chinese Communist Party that has ripped us off for decades and now wants to take America down for good. And that's my open. Let me know what you think on my Facebook and Twitter, #JudgeJeanne. And remember, if you like my opens, you're going to love my new book, Don't Lie to Me. It's in stores in September, but you can pre-order your copy today.